right, everybody. My name is Todd Richards.
And I'm Darko Vukovic.
And we are with the the County Freedom Coalition. And one of the things that we would like everybody to do for us right off the bat is go ahead and like and subscribe to this video. This only helps out, like now, our guest and guests in the future will be able to be seen and heard, and that is that's a big plus for what we're trying to do. So in this podcast, we're interviewing people who are trying to advance liberty and freedom in the state of Colorado, and today we are joined by candidate for Weld County Commissioner Kevin Ross. How you doing, sir?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. So just going to start off with some interesting questions, break some ice and get to know you better as a person, even though I've known you for quite some time.
Yeah.
So where were you born?
Well, I was born in Denver, Colorado, so not too far from here.
Not too far. All right.
Colorado native.
Yep. There's a very far and few between Colorado natives.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, I grew up here in Eaton. Went through elementary, graduated high school here. Was fortunate enough. We did have a family farm in Wyoming, a little town called Chugwater, about 200 people.
Oh, yes. Been
north
there.
of Cheyenne, and we had a family farm. So from about sixth grade through college, I worked on that farm. So that was great, dryland wheat, and went to the University of Wyoming, and that's where I met my beautiful bride, Amy, in college, and came back. Eaton's one of those towns I swore as a kid, I'm never going to come back here. And then you realize how great it is, and couldn't be happier with living here and raising a family here.
Yep.
Kevin, for those that are not familiar, where's Eaton located within
Well,
Colorado?
it's just north of Greeley, about 7 miles, or if you're familiar with where Fort Collins is, we're directly east of Fort Collins, about 13 miles. So it's, kind of in that 85, I-25 corridor, and great little community. We got about 7,000 people now in Eaton. We're growing, and we're part of, really one of the fastest growing regions in the country. I think this census block here is the third fastest growing region in the entire country. So we're experiencing some of those booms here in our great community as well.
So I do know some of your story. So I know you were on city council for quite a while. How many years were you on the?
Yeah, so I ran for city council in 2012 and got on then, and then became mayor of Eaton in 2016 and served nearly 4 years there. I was a month short because I got appointed to Weld County Commissioner. There was a vacancy, and they had an appointment committee, being the county council, and they voted me in for the interim. So I served as county commissioner from February of 2020 through the end of the year. So, taking on an interim role, it can be challenging. And I said, hey, why not make it a little more challenging? Let's throw in a global pandemic to boot, right?
Yeah.
And so about 2 weeks into it, we came up with COVID, and had the fun time of navigating that. I'll tell you, though, it was challenging. It was tough, but one of the most rewarding times of my life, as far as, we worked our tail off. We were working 20 hours a week for 20 hours a day most of the time. And it took all 5 of us county commissioners meeting that challenge, and we were all firing on every cylinder. And I'm proud of what we did during that time.
So what was tougher? Your almost 4 years as mayor, because you had a pretty tough couple of things that happened there, and then or as a commissioner.
Well, we might as well touch on what you're chatting about here as mayor. We had some very sad occurrences happen. We had a couple of teenagers die in different accidents at the railroad tracks, and that's challenging. You hate to lose youth, especially when it comes to tragic car accidents. They were hit by trains. Ironically, almost a year to the date from
to the day. Almost to the day.
Almost,
yeah.
I think it was to the day. I mean, it might have been 2 days off.
Yep.
And it's just that was tragic. Fortunately, I sat as the chairman for the North Front Range Metropolitan Organization. That's a group that directs all of our transportation dollars here in northern Colorado. And with that, I had great relationships. And so I was able to partner with CDOT We closed that intersection. I caught a little flack for closing an
Yeah.
intersection in
I
town, but
yeah, I hated
you
it,
know,
by the way.
I know you and I talked, but I would make that same decision today. Uh, we were able to force Union Pacific's hand and get crossing arms in there.
Mhm.
Really, that's generally a 4 to 5 year process. We got it done in about 16 months, and I'm proud of that work. I know it was an inconvenience for our community having Fifth Street closed there, but it is a lot safer, and that was one of the toughest things I've been through is being that mayor, was being on scene for both of those accidents, and I knew both those kids as well, so that's tough. And we'd lost a kid at intersection just north of there the year prior to that
Yep.
stoplight, so that was challenging. You go to the global pandemic though of COVID, that's such a greater thing, and it's something no one had been through, right? I mean, I had resources as mayor to talk to others about those types of accidents or losses, and what to do. None of us had been through a pandemic. None of us were alive back when the Spanish flu hit or anything to that nature. So we're taking it on. The former mayor of Eaton, Scott Mosier, he's on a federal national response team, so he got called up because he works as a funeral home director in his personal life, but he goes on site and embalms bodies and gets them prepared when you have large catastrophe type situations, hurricanes, earthquakes, plane accidents, or he got shipped out to New York during this. And Mayor Mosier was calling me going, Kevin, you guys need to be ready. I'm here in New York and we've got buildings the size of Costco, right? Where we're processing bodies right now. And he said it's coming. So, we made preparations as a county, as county commissioners, for what we didn't know. We didn't know what the pandemic would bring, and there was a lot of fear, but we made quiet preparations so that we wouldn't be caught off guard. I can talk about some of those. We had refrigerated trucks all around the county so that we could hold on to bodies if we needed to hold on to them while we were processing them. We had facilities for the coroner that he could go through using large amounts and processing large amounts of patients. We also helped the state set up the Budweiser Center, which is west of town. We know where that's at, but that was a trauma center. It never got utilized. The state put the money into that, but we had to get it all situated. But it never got utilized. It's one of those things you didn't know what to expect. We got prepared the best we knew how. We partnered with law enforcement. We made sure what we did was legal. So we were partnering with our legal team, partnering with our hospitals. We were on daily calls with our hospitals here in the region and getting updates as to what things were looking like. And that led to a lot of discussion, I'll tell you, because I'm sure you can remember Todd and Darko. There was all sorts of information coming in, right? What these numbers were doing, what it looked like. I guess we didn't subscribe to all the stuff that was coming through the mainstream media as county commissioners, because we had the data. We were looking at what we were truly seeing, right? And there were some passionate conversations in our workroom and in our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, we did it the right way. We ultimately, what it came down to, and some may fault us, but we said there were going to be no mask mandates in Weld County. And we pushed that through our health department. We said we weren't going to force business closures. At the end of the day, what we said is, you, the individual, you can make a better decision. What's best for yourself, what's best for your family, what's best for your business. You don't need government coming in and telling you how to run your household or run that business. You're going to make the best decision. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask. If you want to wear a mask, that's best for you, wear a mask, right?
Yep.
We're not here to tell you what to do. And I still remember standing up in our room and looking at our fellow commissioners and those in the room going, guys, the Constitution does not take a break. Our rights, our liberties do not take a break, even in times of darkness, in times of emergency. In fact, that's when they need to be stood up the most, because too often times what I've seen or witnessed, you can witness it in our country, you can witness it globally. When these things happen, it's a power grab, and you'll see governments take on power and authority. And when they do, they don't give it back. And that's frightening to me. And it should be frightening to everybody out here.
Yeah,
So
well,
Kevin, how do you, I'm curious to kind of hear your philosophy on, in those examples, like how do you lead without being an authoritarian? How do you lead with the assumption that the citizens will do what's right and what's necessary?
Well, they don't always. I mean, citizens don't always do what's right. I mean, not you can't expect everyone to. I mean, that's why we have crime today, right? I mean, not everyone does the right thing. So you're going to have those that don't. We weren't liked. It wasn't popular by everybody what we were doing. But you lead in those times by talking with a lot. You have to have communication, okay? Communication with our municipalities, communication with our med response folks, our first responders, communication with those that are going to be responsible for enforcement. You have to have open dialogue. And I also like to do that. Let's play devil's advocate, right? Okay, so we're going to do this, right? What's going to potentially happen? Could X happen? Could Y happen? And in government, and anytime you're leading, I come from the private world and business, so those unintended consequences from your decisions that end up biting you in the back end. And so your goal is to try and think through as many of those as possible so that you haven't thought of a solution, right? And here's where I thought we did a great job as commissioners. I would come up with an idea, let's just say, and another commissioner go, okay, well, have you thought of this? And what if we did this? And another commissioner go, those are great, but what about this? And at the end of the day, we had very few decisions that it was just one person going, we're going to do X, Y, Z. It tended to be a collaboration, and it was a collaboration with talking with those experts we have in a room. I'm proud to work for Weld County. I'm proud to be a part of it. We have some of the brightest individuals in our departments, and they really got an opportunity to shine. And I think you have to empower those people even more so in times like this, or in times like COVID when that was coming out, so that you're getting a broad perspective of what's going on. And then that helps you make decisions going forward. And you can't make everybody happy. And in government or in leadership, that's one of the first things you learn. If you're just there to make everybody happy, you're going to fail, and you can't really lead. Sometimes you have to be willing to understand not everyone's going to be happy, but you're going to forge a path forward. Doesn't mean you can't change it down the road if you find out you made a catastrophic mistake or something. But that's how I'd look at it.
well, you kind of answered like 3 questions all at once.
Sorry, Todd. I just get going, man.
No, that's fine. I've been on part of those conversations where you've been going and going and going and going. So it's always been enjoyable watching you talk to groups of people. So
it's fun. I enjoy it.
Oh yeah, it's always even in the bad ones, being up there and calming people down and stuff.
Were you at that meeting after those car accidents when we were at the rec center and discussing that? That was something, wasn't it?
That was a hard group of people.
That was hard. What did we have? Probably 300 people in that room.
Oh yeah,
easy.
And there was the emotion of the families were there, and then the emotion of, well, we're going to close the road, which everybody knew that was probably, close the road. But then on the other side of that was, those kids knew what they were doing. And, people were coming out and saying, why am I being punished for what 2 kids did? And
I get that. And one of the most
And
This comment that came out of it still haunts me to this day. There's a young lady, teenage driver. She gets the microphone and she says, "Well, what am I supposed to do when I'm stopped on the tracks and a train's coming?" And I
yeah,
remember that so vividly. And I just look at her and I go, "Well, first of all, you shouldn't stop on the tracks ever, right?"
yeah,
And it's like one of those things. It's like, where are we missing the boat here on driver's education?
oh yeah,
If that's her question, and I'm going, to me, that's simple. You and I know that, and the majority of your listeners here probably know that. But it struck me as odd because that was a legitimate question for that young lady, and
yeah,
it's it's scary, right? I mean,
yep,
but it catches everybody. In the news recently, I'm sure you guys saw it. We had those down in Platteville, right? There was the road rage arrest. Cop car
yep,
was parked on the tracks. Fort Lupton police, from what I've been able to ascertain, throw the suspect in the back of the cruiser that's parked on the tracks, and he gets smoked by a train.
yep,
Thankfully, that person survived. I think they're seriously injured, but what in the world, you
yeah.
know?
That comes back to those. There was easily 350 people there, and people didn't walk. They walked out of that place not happy.
Yeah.
On both sides, they weren't happy that it had, two kids had lost their lives almost a year apart, and that there was no timeline for the reopening of that thoroughfare, which is a major thoroughfare for everybody on
The
the
east side.
east side of the railroad tracks. Everybody comes through there, so
Mhm.
it was pretty difficult. But I think everybody understood the reason why, but it was still
Painful.
inconvenient, painful and inconvenient. So,
Yeah.
but and that was one of the things. How do you define compromise? And is there any room for compromise when a citizen's constitutional rights are at stake?
Ooh. Well, I don't think you can compromise on constitutional rights. I mean, that's a slippery slope, right? Um, Sometimes those rights aren't defined, right? Or you can say there's gray area there, but I don't think you can infringe on those rights at any moment. So I don't believe there's compromise there, Todd. Um, Again, I'll go back to what I said earlier. If you compromise once on those rights, it's a slippery slope, and all of a sudden you're compromising everything away. And it only takes that once to lose integrity and then lose those rights forever. So I'm not willing to do that. If we talk about compromise from just a compromise position, yeah, I think there's always compromise, right? If we're talking business dealings with the county, business dealings, in general, or anything. I mean, you and I can sit down and decide we're going to go have a pizza. We're probably going to compromise on what those toppings are, most
Those
likely,
toppings are, yeah, oh yeah,
right?
oh yeah,
But that's taking into account you have a different taste, right? Or you have a different experience than I do. If we're not willing to compromise and learn from each other, then we end up in the position we're at, right? This is why Colorado is what Colorado is right now, is because the blue side of the state has taken over and they're running their agenda. And make no mistake, there's no compromise there,
yep.
right?
There's
Last
none.
time Republicans had any of those chambers, they thought it was great to compromise. They thought that was the winning solution. The left has taken it, and there's no compromise. They are pushing their agenda, and they're saying we're going to like it or they don't care, right? And that's not healthy. How does that represent the entire state? It doesn't represent the entire state. And I think that probably goes to why so many people are frustrated around this state with the way things are going. That's anything from transportation to air quality control to, electricity to, this green energy deal they're essentially passing through the state, labor laws, narcotics, you name it. It's an agenda where it's driven from a point of view that I don't agree with. I don't know about you or your listeners whether they agree with it, but there's no common sense in it to me, right? When you look at these narcotic laws that are coming down from the state, you can carry around enough fentanyl in your pocket to essentially wipe out Greeley and Fort Collins. It's not even a felony, right? I mean, you get a slap on the wrist and they'll say, all right, don't do it again. Make sure you come to court. You think they go to court? No. And
No.
and it's just, it makes zero sense to me. It makes zero sense to most people that really truly care about Colorado. I still believe it's a great state. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else, but some of the way it's going, it's just crazy right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the things that I think it was a couple of days ago, governor got up there and was talking about how, we have all these problems. There's this problem, and I'm going to fix this problem for you. And there's this problem, but I'm going to fix it for you. Well, you caused those problems.
Fixed them? He caused them.
He caused them, and now he's going to say, well, my next term, I'm going to fix all these problems. Well, he caused all those problems in his first term.
He did. So go back to when I was commissioner in 2020. I'm on the phone with him, right? And he's given us the what to on that we need to comply with what his acts are for shutting all these businesses down, right? The mask law. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, Governor, with all due respect, no, you can't one size fits all. We have 32 municipalities across the state, or across our county, excuse me. Every one of them's a different community. You can't tell me what works for Grover, works for Windsor, works for Fort Lupton. No way, Jose. And I can't do it. How can I enforce something like that? Who's our enforcement arm in the county? It's the sheriff.
The sheriff. Yeah.
The sheriff can't enforce that. He's not going to go around, nor would we want him to. You can't take away these rights and liberties. You can't close businesses. So, I mean, what did he do? The governor flexed, right? And he flexed on the liquor laws, because that's where he actually had a little bit of pull. But I don't believe any of those businesses that they got the temporary cease and desist or temporary removal of their liquor licenses. None of them lost it, because if you read the fine print, they had to go to a hearing. There was no hearing, right? So it was, what's funny to me, and this is why I mention it, is he's blasting us at that time for our stance here in Weld County. But now you go and you listen to his political campaign, and he touts himself as this personal responsibility governor, right? And it's your decision to do this, and it's your decision to do that. You didn't give us those decisions during one of the greatest times you could have. You took it under your wing as governor and mandated everything, so to get elected, he talks like us, but that's not what he does.
Yep.
Kevin, I'd love to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. One thought that kind of runs through my mind quite often is this notion of who has higher authority in a jurisdiction. Is it the more local government? So say Weld County within Weld County versus the state versus the federal government, or does the federal government have the highest authority, and then whatever is left goes to the state and whatever is left goes down to the county? And kind of the part two of that question is, could local police defend local citizens and local businesses against a higher order authority that's trying to come in and enforce their laws? Because I know Weld County said, we're not going to enforce any of these governor's laws, but it was still kind of left vague in the business's eyes of like, well, could the state come here and, get me in trouble and fine me and cite me and revoke my license? And does the local county have any authority to protect them against a state trying to do so?
Darko, that's a great question. So, you have to start with our Constitution, right? In the Constitution, it's really spelled out and only gives the federal government limited powers, right? You are limited in your authority, in your power as the federal government. So that's president, Congress, right? To do these few things. Now, unfortunately, that's expanded, it feels like, right, since it was written, but really the power was supposed to be with the states. And the power was supposed to be with the states because that's how they came to the compromise that we talked about earlier, right? Because you had 13 different states coming together as one greater authority, being the United States of America. But the power was supposed to be with the states so that they can make their own rules, laws, right, as to what was best for them. Again, just like the 32 communities we have in Weld County, it's similar to the states, right? They're different communities. Those different states have different views on how they want to conduct commerce, how their citizens want to live, various different things. So more power rests at the state. This is kind of funny you bring this up. One of the people around Weld County is named Steve Wells. He's a big rancher, oil and gas individual. He called me a month ago and he goes, Kevin, he goes, I want you to find out truly what the authority of the county is, what you have power to do, right? And when you get down to it, we have authority in like land use cases, transportation as far as county roads, things to that nature. We have authority in our own health department, various things, right? But by and large, what the county's role is to execute, okay, what the state has passed, right? The state says we are passing these laws, these regulations, and then it comes down to the county to basically implement and execute those laws, because so many of those services are ran directly through the county services that we have. And so then you get to that municipal level and you have jurisdiction inside of your community to do certain things, like how your streets are, how your subdivisions are laid out, where you go get water from, how you get electricity, where your trash comes from, things of that nature, right? The things that directly affect your local community members. But you still have to follow, just like we do at the county, the laws of the state. And when laws are promulgated, you have the legal, I guess I'm searching for the right word. You have to follow those laws legally. You can't just say, nope, I know that's a law for the state, but I'm going to do this. You can't do that. Now, what you're able to do is create stricter regulations, right? You can create stricter laws if it's something that would encompass your community. You can't really make them looser. The state tends to set I'll call it the floor, okay, and you only get to work up from there, should you choose, in many things. So can law enforcement protect its citizens, right, from other law enforcement entities? That's a great question. That's one we debated, right, as commissioners during COVID. I think to some degree you probably can challenge where the state has authority to come into. Those citizens were right. I was a licensed individual. I owned a insurance agency, so my license came from the state. Ultimately, they could say they could take your license away, but here's where I go back to, on the back of your license, you can read it, right? They have to say, Darko, right? We believe you have infringed upon A, B, and C that we have written out here, right, for your contingencies for holding this license. Nowhere was it on there that it said you had to wear a mask or had to close your business in times like this, right? So, but you get your day in court, right? That's the great thing about our system is we have that legal side of it, and we get our day in court. You're innocent until proven guilty, which is so different than the way it was in England when we were a colony. And that's what allows us that. So it was a fear for people. The liquor license thing was a legitimate fear because the state could flex on it. Again, they didn't take them away permanently. At least I'm not aware of any that were. And if obviously there was, I would stand corrected. But you still get your day in court. You still get to be heard. And I think ultimately they knew it wasn't constitutional because those mandates, and this is where we had legal ground as a county to not force them, they weren't promulgated in a legal manner. They didn't go through the state house, the state senate, right, have public hearings and get made into law. They weren't there. That's where we had our thread the needle moment, right, and able to do what we were able to do. I'm not trying to dodge your question on the local law enforcement thing. I don't fully know. My guess is you can make a short stand, right? But ultimately, there's always a higher authority that's going to come in and probably crack the whip, take control of whatever. You make the stand. So much today is probably done in the media versus through true, physical force, I would say. And so it would give that community time to get their message out in the in the media, so that people can hear it and maybe make an issue of it to get corrected if there was a infringement.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, Kevin, is it fair to say that it's not another law enforcement agency's duty to protect your rights? It's really the court's duty to protect your rights. And so one agency should not interfere.
Accurate. That's accurate.
One agency should not interfere with another's agency's desire to take you to court.
You really can't. I don't know if you can. That'd be my personal thought. And I'm not the sheriff. I'm not the police chief. But I don't think you can. It really comes to your opportunity. Then the district attorney is going to look at it, see if there truly are charges that should be brought forth, because and what those charges will be. The arresting or citing legal or I should say, just say police force, right? Charges. The DA decides what charges, to carry through, and then the legal system, whether it's judges or a jury of your peers, decides whether you're guilty or not, depending on what the infraction is. That's, I think, should be on everybody's top of mind as well. And that's judges, right? Who do we have sitting as judges in these seats? And I think voters and individuals need to be educated on who's sitting in those seats, because that's how your laws are being interpreted and carried out.
So what would be your advice to somebody who, and I'm in this predicament, so this is a personal question, but I can't imagine I'm alone. So on one side of the equation, something is being done to you as a citizen, and you're thinking, gosh, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel American. This doesn't feel legal and constitutional. But then on the other side of the equation, it's, oh gosh, I might get arrested. I might get hauled off and processed. I might get fined. I might have to be summoned to court, and I don't know who the judge is, and I don't know what they're going to do to me. And it's a scary process to be tried in front of a judge and potentially a jury. But then, I think living in fear of that process doesn't quite sit as kind of American in my mind. Like, we should embrace that process and say, well, here's my chance to flesh this all the way through and get to a resolution on it and deal with the consequences.
Yeah, and without knowing your situation, Darko, I mean, it is frightening. I mean, there's so many people that come to me, they've said the exact same thing, right? This is a frightening process. I could lose everything. I myself, maybe I'll feel threatened, and others will want to threaten me. It's like during COVID, the death threats that we got, right? I mean, but I think it starts with communication. Reach out to your local elected officials, your police chief or your police force. I always get to talk to your police chief, right? But ask them, this is what I see, right? They're great. They're people just like you and I. They get up in the morning, brush their teeth. They probably get their kids going to school if they have kids, and they have a cup of coffee or tea, or maybe not. I don't know, maybe it's a Red Bull, but they take a shower, they go to work just like you and I. And they're people too. They love having conversations. And a lot of times, you can say, I think this is a concern, and they may be able to say with you, yeah, you may have a true legitimate concern here. Let's explore it more. Or no, it's really not because of this. And they may be able to enlighten you as to why it is or why it isn't. And if it is, a lot of times they'll exercise discretion on, how far they move forward. So, I would never discourage anybody from bringing something forward. That's frightening, right? That's Gestapo type tactics. It's people living in fear of their government is not healthy. It's not.
And that's what I during this COVID, that to me, one of the big takeaways is I feel like I watched people be afraid to challenge the system and therefore get into compliance. when those who did actually challenge the system, when the cases finally did happen, they were absolved of all of it and there was no charges brought to them. And so it scares me that so many people were so quick to jump on the bandwagon and the narrative out of fear.
Lions versus sheep. I think we've seen the shirts, right? But yeah, have courage. And that was a conversation I had with many business owners, because everyone was calling us looking for cover, right? Going, well, what's the county going to do? It's not what we're going to do. It's what we're not going to do, right? Which is, we're not going to infringe upon your rights. You have to have the courage, if you decide that's the best decision for you, to carry out that decision. And yeah, sometimes there's pain in going, out on a limb and doing that. But ultimately, you have to have that courage and figure out if you're right. That's tough. It's tough. And I can see how that's a challenge for many. And it's something you wrestle with. But again, we left that decision to the individuals to figure out which route they wanted to go in those times.
Yep. So, a big question for you. Why do you want to run again for commissioner?
It's a question my family asked me when we considered this, right?
Yep.
The death threats, the fun stuff that, they're like going, Dad, why? We're doing fine. And here's what I come back to. Good people, people with experience, with talent. I've been in the private world, and I've excelled and exceeded in the private world, really with everything I've had the opportunity to challenge myself with. We have to be willing to step forward. If we're not willing to step forward and take on these great challenges, and we just allow people that want to go on a fluke to continue to hold office, why do we expect any different results than what we're currently getting right now? And why would we expect things not to continue to falter? We have to have brave men and women who have tackled great challenges and understand how to run a business, understand how to move things forward in an executive manner, be willing to serve the public and make that sacrifice. And I had a gentleman from one of the oil and gas companies ask me that exact question. I mean, this guy's an exec making, large 7 figures. And I'm telling him this, and he goes, that makes sense, right? He goes, if I'm not willing to sacrifice, why should I expect anybody else to do the same, right? I believe I have that experience. I believe I have what it takes to manage the county, because the county commissioner, that's our primary role. We manage this county here in Weld County. And I believe I have that experience to do it successfully and bring that acumen forward so that we can continue making Weld County a great place to live and work, and continue then to lead the state of Colorado, and in a way such that I believe we can really market what we do here in Weld County. What makes us unique? What's our Weld County way? And I'm not talking about the Weld County way, the road, because we have one of those.
We do.
Yeah. But I'm talking about the way we do things. And it's very unique here, right? I'm proud of it. And I think most people that live in Weld County, they're proud of it too, because it's a little different than the way it's done in a large portion of the state. And what's great is people are seeing the success that we're having here in Weld County, outside of Weld County, and they're going, I want a piece of that too, right? So let's show them what we're doing, what's great, why it's great, why the people here in Weld County are some of the brightest individuals there are. And really, I think it can be a reflection, and I think it can truly lead the state and take us maybe in a different direction than the way the state's currently headed.
You mentioned earlier, Kevin, that the statistical area where Eaton's located is the third fastest growing. Does that encompass Weld County, or does that
Yeah,
metro
yeah,
area?
it's Weld County. When you look at the metropolitan area that serves as that census block, it's all of Weld County, essentially, right?
And this is at a time, I believe, when other counties within Colorado are actually experiencing a decline, although small in population. I know Boulder had a decline in population. I believe there was a few others, but I couldn't recite them off the top of my head. Why do you think that is? Like, what's going on that attracts people to Weld County? And, I'm not saying the people from Boulder moved to Weld County, but they
They
moved
are.
somewhere else.
They're moving there. I mean, you look at the southwest part of our county, the encroachments there, right? Your Boulder communities moving there, your Longmont communities moving to Weld County. There is encroachment going on. That statistic that came out, I think we need to be careful in how we read it. I don't necessarily know, and I don't believe, as I read the data, that those counties have actually became smaller in population. I think their growth rate basically has shrunk, but I don't believe it's negative yet. There are a few rural counties that are experiencing negative population growth, and that's happening as the kids are moving off the family farm, right? And those farms are now conglomerating and becoming larger farms to support and be viable. But why are people coming here? Well, we have affordable housing, and I can touch on that if you want. I think that's a funny word, set of words, means something different to so many people, and we can touch base on that if you want more. But it is more affordable to live in Weld County than in other places. But we're freer with our land use too. So, which is one of the roles of county commissioner. We hear land use hearings. It's a great way. People understand we have freedoms. They want to be part of it too.
And you touched on affordable housing, and you're absolutely right. That word gets conflated quite often. To some, it means programs by the government to make housing more affordable. To others, it's the free market being able to produce a product at a lower price. I assume it's the latter in the case of Weld County.
I would argue it's the latter, right? Affordable housing is, in my mind, a misnomer, because somebody somewhere has to pay for it, right? And when we're in a free market, it's that builder, the developer, that's paying for it up front, and then the homeowners buying it. Well, if we as government entities keep putting mandates on energy codes, efficiency codes, electrical codes, building codes, that makes a house more expensive, right? You don't start putting in these additional things into a home and make it less expensive, because it takes more technology, it takes more materials and time to build that housing unit. It doesn't make it cheaper. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we're truly talking about affordable housing. I think many government officials want to make it a program, right? Because then that's a greater expanse of their authority and their control. And I think it's bad. I found a couple contractors out there I believe are truly creating affordable housing units. It's not a 3,000 square foot home they're building, right? They're building an 800 to a 1,200 square foot home. A great opportunity for a first time home buyer. Doesn't have all the amenities of that 3,000 square foot home that maybe their parents had when they left the house, right? But I think it's a shift too in mentality. I think today's generation's coming out of school and they're going, well, I left this size of house with X, Y, and Z as amenities. Well, that's what I need to buy as my first house. No, you missed the part where your mom and dad or your parent structure cut their teeth, right? And started at a small house, got some equity built up, right? Took time as they grew in their jobs and their careers to get to that larger house. And you don't just start there, but I think people want to. And housing's expensive in Colorado. Main reason being water, in my opinion. It's a finite resource. There's plenty of water. We don't have enough storage for it up and down the Front Range. And we don't have the delivery because we don't have the storage of it. So when I talk to businesses, let's say like a food manufacturer, they're coming and they're going, hey, we want to, Colorado's such a great place to live. Let's build a manufacturing plant there. Great. You're looking at 80 to 90 to maybe $100 million just for your water. And they go, what? Right. I mean, that blows their whole budget out, that, with everything. And so that keeps some of those industries from moving here to Colorado just because of that. But yeah, affordable housing's there, but what is affordable housing? And I think it's a greater discussion. It's not just this term we should be slinging around to get votes. Let's have a real discussion. And what are we meaning when we're talking about affordable housing?
Do you think there's a corresponding industry and employment growth in Weld County as well? Or would you say that more so what's happening is the population growth is growing, but those people are commuters to neighboring counties where they don't have enough housing?
I think there's a lot of that. I think, Darko, you're hitting on a great deal. The communities are aware of it. I talk with all our leaders across Weld County's communities, and they're working hard daily, right, to entice new businesses, to entice new industries into their communities, and show what a great place it is, not only to live, but to work as well. And so, yeah, we've got commuters there. That's no doubt, right? It's cheaper to live in Weld County than it is in Metro Denver. That's why you have the urban sprawl term, and it's real. But as that sprawl continues, the businesses continue to. This country's not built on the big box stores, your Walmart, you name it, right? It's built on your mom and pop, small businesses, 1 to 5, 10 employees. And those businesses are popping up, and they start generally in service arenas, but they grow. And as that sprawl continues, those jobs continue to, and more people are employed in small business than any other, single employer out there. So it'll happen. It all catches up.
It'll will work itself out in the end. So, so you have a four. Well, I don't believe you have anybody running against you for. So basically, you could vote for yourself, and you've won.
As long as I vote for myself, and I'm planning on it. Yeah. I'm. My race really was the primary.
Right.
I was the only one in Weld County to have a primary, and as far as the county offices go, and I was able to win that very decidedly, and we worked hard. But I think my message carries, and yeah, I'm unopposed here for the general election. So we'll go through the general election here in November, and then come January 1, I'll take office officially.
So, what are you looking at for the next four years? Do you have something that you're looking at? Do you want to accomplish for Weld County, or, what was
my goals?
Yeah, what more goals? What was the the message? Maybe some people didn't hear it; they just recognized the name. I know how that name recognition plays out in a race. It's very important. And so yeah, what's the message you were getting out that you want to bring to Weld County for the next 4 years? And what are some of the ideas and things you want to bring to Weld County and help us grow?
So first and foremost, we're going to continue to improve transportation. Transportation was a key when I was mayor. We got the I-25 expansion started when I was chairman of the North Front Range MPO. That was 40 years ahead of when it was supposed to do. But as communities, we came together, and we brought $57 million to the table through that local collaboration, which really what it was, all up and down the Front Range, both sides of the interstate. We got that first $57 million. We were able to then get matching dollars and Tiger grants, get $500 million, get that I-25 expansion. We've now gotten just shy of $2 billion for the I-25 expansion to get that done. And again, that's about 40 years ahead of when the feds had it slated for any improvement.
Is that going to be 3 lanes and a carpool lane, or is it 2 lanes in a carpool lane?
It's 2 lanes plus a carpool lane right now. Okay, it's called a managed lane is how they refer
Right.
to it.
Right.
But what we did, we tried to have foresight on this, right? Which many electeds, I think, missed the boat. We built the infrastructure so your interchanges, your overpasses, your underpasses, we built those for 4 lanes on both way.
Yeah.
Because the cost was minimal right now. But in today's dollars, it's a lot less expensive than if we have to come back, rip out all those overpasses, underpasses 10, 15 years from now to build that 4th lane going each way. I mean, we're trying to be frugal and smart with taxpayer dollars. But
Right.
as far as transportation goes, we need to be able to get our residents to and from work, to and from school in an efficient manner. And that comes from communication with our municipalities and our communities, making sure we understand their traffic patterns, what they're looking at for how they want to grow, and partnering with them. Because as we continue to grow, the county, the unincorporated county portion becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, while our municipalities become larger and larger. And so if we don't communicate with them and lay that groundwork now, we're wasting taxpayer dollars, we're wasting time, we're wasting energy, we're wasting efforts. We're going to have everybody at the table making those decisions now. Continue that forward as we improve local thoroughfares and become that partner with our community. So I'm going to pledge to continue to improve our transportation corridors. Also, we're going to work on the waterfront. Water's huge. Counties haven't typically gotten into the water, but when water leaves Weld County, if we dry up farms and that water goes to Thornton or wherever, we don't ever get it back, and we lose that economic impact, that positive economic impact that water had for those crops or development or whatever that may have been. So we're gonna explore, and I've already been working on this with the county and our legal team, and exploring ways on figuring out how to keep potentially that water in Weld County. And make it available for Weld County users at the end of the day. So we're going to work on that. And we're also going to work on the services that we provide, expanding those around the county. I know Greeley's our county seat, but we have more and more population showing up in our south end of the county, and they don't want to drive an hour and a half to get to Greeley to get those services. So what services can we provide down to them without having to spend a lot on capital expenditures? Now, here's what I love about Weld County. And this is that Weld County way we talk about. If we don't have the money, we don't go and spend it, right? We are not going to bring on debt and burden future generations with debt that we try and incur today because we want something new and flashy. Simply put, if we don't have the cash, we're not going to go buy it. And if we do, then we'll pay for it in cash. And that's how I'll continue to operate, because I'm not here to burden future generations with debt. It's not how government should operate.
Yeah, I think that was really prevalent in the 2013 floods, that Weld County pretty much paid for all that stuff in cash. And there are still things in Boulder County that have not been fixed 10 years later.
Yep, and
Lerner. Because they don't have the money. Yeah, Lerner County too. They don't have the money.
And think of the Weld County Parkway. $160 million paid for in cash. The new jail expansion paid for in cash, right? We save our money, and we've been fortunate. We have oil and gas, right? But we're not spending oil and gas on hiring a whole bunch of people and starting up new departments, right? We're saving it. We have healthy reserves, but as we have capital expenditures where we really can make a difference, that's what we're spending it on. So all the Weld County residents can benefit from it.
Yes. So is there a logistical? You talked about having things down there in the southern part of the county. Weld County is a very big county. It's bigger than the state, than 2 states combined, and almost as big as the state of Connecticut. So, what are the logistical problems with having those things? Because, granted, the population is pretty much 85 west, and I guess that can go all the way down to Adams County. So there just has to be this logistical problem as the urban sprawl grows out, and pretty soon it's going to start growing out east of 85, and probably even further out on the borders there with Fort Morgan. I'm sure that there's going to have to be some of that capital spending, things being spent to get those programs out to those people.
Yeah, one of those challenges is a jail, right? Just for law enforcement, if you're an Erie cop and you need to bring somebody clear to Greeley, you're taking that cop off the beat for an hour and a half here processing for, I don't know, however long that talk takes, and legitimately an hour back. That's a large portion of their day. And yeah, they're doing their role, but they could be doing other things truly inside of their community. So one of the things we're looking at is an expansion of the jail down south to meet some of those needs. Some of those other things we're looking at is those forward facing services like clerk and recorder. And Carly Koppas has done a great job of getting kiosks and stuff like that around the county, like in King Supers and things like that. So if you want to go renew your plates, you don't need to come to Greeley to do that, right? Go to this kiosk and do it yourself. And so some of those services can continue to be expanded down south, but really those forward facing things and probably our DHS department, some of those services can start being looked at down there. But that transition's occurring. It's just how much can we roll out, still be fiscally responsible and be prudent with taxpayer dollars, because you can spend all day long. I mean, in theory, right? Because as a government, you have taxing authority, but that's not how we do it here. In fact, what's great, your property assessment is really about 22.038 mils as far as taxation goes. We relieve 7 of those. We forgive 7 of those every year, saying we're not going to tax you our full taxing authority that we have, right? We're doing well. We're smart. Weld County's in a good place. Why collect more taxes than we need to?
So maybe just elaborate on that, Kevin. How is it that the county with the lowest tax burden is the county that is flush with cash and paying for things in cash? I mean, is it as simple as, hey, we got fortunate to have a strong oil and gas industry, or is there more to it?
No, there's far more to it, right? So we as county commissioners, we're unique. We're a home rule charter county. So we're one of 2 now in the state. But we made it a goal, and my predecessors made it a goal, that this is how we're going to operate. We are going to operate this in a financial manner similar to a business. And this is the best thing for the taxpayers. This is the best thing for our residents, that they shouldn't be paying a high amount of taxes and they shouldn't be incurring debt. We're the only county in the country that can say we don't have any sales tax. We don't have any short-term debt. We don't have any long-term debt. We're the only county that can say that. How proud should our residents be? But it's because we manage the county. So we're in charge of the budget for every department. Even the clerk, even the sheriff, all these other elected officials, we're still in charge of their budget, right? So they have to come to us, and they we have budget warning sessions, and we have budget hearings where they go, we need, we have this many FTEs, full-time employees. We need, 3 more this year. Well, make the case. Why do we need that incurring liability, right? What is that person going to do? And we have our normal pay step program. Why is person ABC worth more than what they're stepped at? Make that case to us, right? As commissioners, and it keeps everything in check. It keeps that size of government. Isn't that the goal? Keeping government minimal in our lives. And it allows us to do that, keep our finger on it. That's, everybody asks me, what does a county commissioner do? And shame on us that people don't know what a county commissioner does, right? But it's that we manage the budget for the county. We manage your tax dollars. Our budget for the counties this year, it's going to be just shy of $500 million. We collect over $1 billion in taxes. Those taxes are spread out to various, municipalities, different taxation authorities inside the county. But our budget, the county is shy of $500 million. So we manage the budget, but we also manage all the departments. As a commissioner, you generally have about 8 departments under you. You are responsible for setting the direction, us commissioners, of where the county's going, making sure those departments are heading in that direction. We're responsible for the hiring and firing of those department heads to make sure that they're in fact carrying out what we do. We handle land use hearings, so that as you know, private property owner come in front of us and say, I want to change this from a residential property to now a commercial property, or I'd like to make this a subdivision and develop homes on it, or, I want to put a industry here. Okay, well, we get to hear that, right? We get to determine if it meets our code and if it's proper for the surrounding area. And we have a quasi judicial role where a resident can say, we're not happy with that decision that the county made. They come in front of us and we have to have a hearing. And maybe sometimes they infringed and they didn't ask the county to put that business on that property. They just did. And we have to have a hearing and, see whether we're going to allow that to continue or not. So we have that quasi judicial role. It's a full-time role. It is full-time. It's a good 60 to 70, 80 hours a week. If you really get into it and you do what you do, you have many committee hearings, you sit on transportation committees, you sit on state committees. These meetings are occurring at 7 a.m, clear till 10 o'clock at night. And you have your internal meetings. We call those work sessions that directs, that's where we have internal, this is where the rubber meets the road. Let's make the soup here. But nothing's official in there. It still has to get voted on. Only time a decision can get made is during our board meetings. And then, we as commissioners decide, the 5 of us, whether we're in favor of what that proposal is coming forward. And sometimes it passes, sometimes it doesn't. But it's a good process. It's a healthy process. Again, we're the only county in the state that doesn't have a county manager. Because of our charter, the people of Weld County have entrusted us, the Weld County Commissioners, to be that manager. And it takes on that additional role and keeps us busy. But that's what the people have entrusted us to do as county commissioners. And I'm proud to be able to do that. But that's where I think you need A+ people running in these jobs that understand how to run a business, how to manage people, and really what it takes to be successful in that role.
So maybe one last question here is, what did you experience when you became a public official? What were the negative impacts on your life? Because I would imagine that people might have fears about how their personal life will become disrupted by becoming an official. What are some real impacts so that people, don't misconstrue that into being something different than what it is in reality?
It's challenging. I think the tough thing is on your family. Me, I'm able to take comments, criticisms. That's healthy, right? That's people coming to you with a true concern because it's affecting them. And everybody gets affected and has a different story in their life as to why things affect them differently. And those are good to hear. Death threats, they're not healthy, right? That's happened. And that's probably the biggest negative. Now, my wife would probably tell you one of the other negatives is you go to the grocery store, and if we want to get in and out of there in a hurry, I don't get to go in because everyone stops you, they talk to you, and it's good and it's bad, right? They love to tell you great job sometimes they tell you, hey, you're a bonehead, why did you make this decision? But I appreciate that because that's real-time feedback. That's the great part about local government is it's hands-on. You're seeing the people, you're talking to them on a daily basis, and your decisions affect lives immediately. And you should have that interaction with people, whether you're out to dinner, you're going shopping, you're doing whatever. I'm at my daughter's volleyball game, right? I'm at my daughter's marching band competition. But I'd say the greatest impact is on the family because those stresses hit them. They hear the criticisms. And they take it personal because they want to defend dad. They want to defend their husband or their wife when they're in that role. And so that can be challenging. But when I decided to run this time, it was a family discussion on whether we felt we could take those challenges on again. And we put up some guardrails this time, as to what's going to get brought home, some of the things we're doing, and making sure I still stay focused on family too. And it's real easy. You get into these roles and they're consuming. Don't let anybody kid you when you become an elected official. If you're doing it right, it will consume every minute of the day. And but you still have to be able to put your God, family first, and make sure you take care of those responsibilities. And so we're doing that, and it's all communication, and that can be challenging at times, just like it is with anybody, right? We all have our own personal challenges, and but it's how you take on those challenges and manage them that determine whether they're going to be successful or not.
Very nice. So how can people reach you?
That's an easy question. All the time. They can reach me on my personal cell phone, 970-381-5172. They can reach me via email. I'll have a county email address once I officially get elected here and take office January 1st. But right now they can reach out to me on my campaign one, and that's Kevin, Kevin, the number 4, Weld, WELD @gmail.com. So Kevin for Weld @gmail.com. I got my website. It's got all that stuff on there. I got Facebook. It's Kevin Ross for Weld. And that one, I think you have to spell out 4 on that one instead of the number 4 as far as the website goes. But yeah, I've always been accessible. I always answer emails, phone calls. And here's what I ask. When people come to me and they have a concern, it's real easy to have a concern and complain. We can all do it, right? I can complain about how my wife cooked pancakes this morning, right? But let's have a solution. So when you come forward with a concern, bring a solution, because that's how I'm wired, right? If you have a problem, I'm going to try and find a solution if it's viable. And so come up with a solution, because that's when we get constructive. That's when we can have real dialogue. No one got anywhere by just yelling at somebody, and I'm no different. If you're just going to light me up, I'm a big boy. I'll take it, but that's not constructive. That's not going to solve anybody's problems at the end of the day. You may feel good for a while, but I guarantee after the dust settles and the temperature calms down, generally most people, when they've had those situations, go, I could have handled that better. And I always say, bring a solution, because if it truly is a problem, then there's got to be a solution out there.
Yeah, I love that policy, because it's kind of true civic engagement. So that's right. Awesome.
I agree.
Yep. All right. Well, Kevin, thank you very much for coming on and talking with us and getting your message out there so people can understand where you're coming from better.
My pleasure.
And hopefully they can know who they're going to vote for, even though there's one spot on there. Because some people might go, you know what, I'm not going to vote for this guy. But
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, and it's perfectly reasonable. But yeah, and if any other time later on, you want to come on and talk about what's going on in the county, and maybe a year or so after the elections are over,
reach out to me, please.
We're here, and we can listen to you complain, and we'll just nod our head and smile and go, sure, okay, yeah. When you have that,
I got to come up with a solution.
Yeah,
right?
When you're having a bad day, and we'll listen. So
sometimes that happens. That's the truth, right?
Yep, it is. It is the truth. So yeah. So again, thank you very much for coming out and spending a little over an hour with us, and that's good. It's good stuff for everybody. So
I appreciate it. We're going to go off to a volleyball game now and cheer on my daughter and have a good evening. So Appreciate the opportunity, guys, and look forward to serving Weld County. So thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Kevin.